Assalamu alaikum. How are you all? Okay, our topic remains the same as the political systems and political parties of Pakistan. As you remember that we have been discussing political systems in Pakistan, that we have the country has been given three constitutions, 1956, 62 and 73, and then there was a parliamentary system in the 56, presidential system in the 62, and parliamentary system again with bicameral legislature in the 1973 constitution. Then we defined political party, what is a political party, and then we started discussing about main political parties in Pakistan and what are the, what is the culture, the political culture in Pakistan, and is there any internal democracy in political parties or not. So, and then what were the hardships the parties in Pakistan were facing. This is what we have been discussing in the last class. So I will take from there and sorry. Now we have discussed this Islamic politics in the country, right? So the combination of self-interest along with the Islamic politics has complicated the issue in the country. This is what we have discussed. Like I would not go into detail again, but you just go to my last lecture and then you will come to know about what I have been discussing about this particular point. Okay. Okay. Now then there were efforts in the problems of political parties. There were efforts by other political parties to contest the power of the League, which is Pakistan Muslim League, but they were frustrated, right? Their efforts were frustrated, and the opposition political parties were often physically prevented from appealing to their constituencies and by dubbing them as unpatriotic. So this was a negative approach by the Pakistan Muslim League at that time, that the leadership in the Pakistan Muslim League, they did not accept opposition. Whenever opposition would evolve or would arise, they would dub it as anti-Pakistan, because they thought that they have the sole right to rule the country and no other political party can be formed in the country. We have been discussing this thing in the initial problems of Pakistan in the previous lectures in detail, and how these different parties were formed and why these parties were then eliminated, or then they were squeezed to or they were disciplined, why they were during 1950s and 1960s, right? Particularly in 1950s. Okay. And it was very hard at that time to make other parties, like the Unionist Party, it was formed in Punjab, but then it was very hard for the leaders of that party to run the party and present a viable opposition to the Pakistan Muslim League, because they would be dubbed as unpatriotic. Okay. The League governments used repressive measures against these political parties, which would emerge in opposition to the policies of Pakistan Muslim League. For example, the red shirts, or the red shirt in NWFP, right? And then Majlis-e-Ahrar, Jamaat-e-Islami and Pakistan National Congress were the targets at different times by the Pakistan Muslim League. So these parties, they emerged, but they were targeted by Pakistan Muslim League. So they were not allowed to flourish. It was a negative element. It was a negative trait of Pakistan Muslim League. And I think that this negativity which Pakistan Muslim League demonstrated during the initial years of Pakistan basically have some long term impacts on the politics and the political culture in Pakistan, which is visible up till date, right? Okay. Pakistani version of political party. Now what is this? You can see that Ayub Khan bestowed his own constitution in 1962. He gave this 1962 constitution just because it was suiting his needs. Then Ayub Khan believed that, from here you can see that it was possible to conduct government without the formal establishment of political parties. You can run government without even formally establishing a political party. This was his view. So that is why even he did not try to provide a conducive environment for the political parties to flourish in the country. But then later on he realized that it would be difficult for him to run the government without the backing of a political party. So then he created his own political party, right? He created his own political party just to give him that legal sanctity and to run the government. Then what happened in that process, that he borrowed the name of Pakistan Muslim League from that party, right? But then the real Muslim League agitated against it, they protested against it, right? And when he saw this outrage in the public and among the followers of the real Muslim League and among the leadership of the real Muslim League, like the Pakistan Muslim League, so then Ayub Khan modified the name as the Convention Muslim League. So this name was given to him, but then Muslim League was again there. He could have given it some other name, but he insisted on retaining the name of the Muslim League, because, and this shows that the image of a political party in the people, in the minds of the people of West Pakistan particularly, was that of Muslim League. They could not even the name, like political party and Muslim League were kind of identical for them. So they could not think of any other name, and that is why for popularity Ayub Khan first chose this Pakistan Muslim League name, the Muslim League name, and then when it was protested, when people agitated against it, so then he changed the name to Convention Muslim League, right? So even Muslim League was retained in the new name as well. Okay, then this Convention Muslim League was dissolved on 5th July 1977 when the third martial law was imposed, right? By the fourth dictator in the history of Pakistan, that was Muhammad Ziaul Haq, right? Again in 1986, Muhammad Khan Junaido recreated it after becoming the Prime Minister in the non-party based election, as in 1986 non-party based elections were conducted in the country, and later on he recreated this Convention Muslim League, which was eliminated, or which was dissolved in 1977. The growth of, now this is a very interesting, right? The growth of political parties within the parliament is a phenomenon confined only to Pakistan. Political parties, they usually are created outside the parliament, then they contest in the elections, and then they reach to the parliament. But what happens in Pakistan usually is that political parties are formed within the parliament. A parliament would be sitting, and then a forward bloc would be made, and then another forward bloc, and they would name it some party, and a party would be emerged from within the parliament. So this is also very unfortunate. This practice is detrimental for the very existence of the political parties, which are fruitful for the masses, right? Okay, citizens from parties that politically compete for power, and if trusted, only then enter the powers, the corridors of power. But what happens in Pakistan, that they do not compete to enter to the corridors of power. When they are in the corridors of power, then they compete with others, they join like-minded people, and then they make a forward bloc, or they just make a new party out of that, and then they go. So this is negative. This is negative for parliamentary democracy, because in parliamentary democracy, the leader of the house, which is the leader of the government as well, the chief executive, he basically has got this the vote of the members of the parliament with him. So if these forward blocks are made, if parties are broken within the parliament, members are broken from one party and then they make another party, basically this vote of confidence is required for the leader again. For the leader to remain the chief executive, the vote of confidence is required, and governments are, governments face a lot of difficulty when such kind of situation, when such kind of scenario occurs over there in the parliament, right? So this is a negative thing of the Pakistani political parties. Another thing is that the modus operandi of the establishment is to have obedient political parties in its pocket. So this is a modus operandi of the establishment as well, that they would not want any political party to be strong enough to challenge their monopoly, to challenge the status quo in the country, right? So that is why these small parties are always needed to keep a pressure, keep a check on the elected governments, right? Then personality-centered Pakistan's People's Party and Awami League, you know, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman and Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, were able to articulate people's voice and exhibited unique success in the country's, you can read it from here, right? Success in the country's first general election in 1970, which was on the basis of adult franchise in the country, right? So, but what happened, we all knew that one party did not accept the dominance of, or the majority of the other party, so that was another debate. We have discussed that in detail, right? See, right, so Zulfikar Ali Bhutto could not digest the fact that democratically elected leader from the East Pakistan will now rule the whole country. So this is a negative, this again set a negative precedent in the country's political history. So political party, which was a strong party, Pakistan People's Party, and on the other hand, there was Awami League in the East Pakistan. Both these political parties, though they were strong enough to set a good precedent for the coming generations and you know, for their followers in the country, they could not digest the fact, particularly Zulfikar Ali Bhutto, he was a political leader, he could not digest this fact that Awami League is the majority party in the country, and now the leaders from Awami League, Sheikh Mujibur Rahman particularly, should form a government. So he he resorted to the politics of agitation, and he resorted to the politics of conspiracies against the Awami League at that time, and that negatively impacted the progress of political parties in Pakistan. See, we had Pakistan Muslim League initially, which was an elitist party. Then we saw that, okay, a genuine party, like the Convention Muslim League was made by Ayub Khan, and it is standing nowhere then. It was standing nowhere in 1977. But Pakistan People's Party was made, and it was a representative of the popular sentiments, right? And Awami League was made over there in the East Pakistan, a representative party, political party of the sentiments of the people in the East Pakistan. So if you see the political culture, it was kind of emancipated from the clutches of Pakistan Muslim League by the 1960s and 1970s. But then when it came to the question of the making of government in the country, another main political party, which was established by a landlord, could not accept the fact that another party, which the leader of that party is a person from the middle class, will form the government, and that is why this landlord could not accept the leadership of the middle class. In other words, you can say that. So it was a negative thing in the history of Pakistan, and it has its impact on the political parties in the current Pakistan as well, right? Okay, then political parties and mass contact in the country. It is also a very complicated issue. For example, the development of political parties is related to the level of development of a society, the quality of mutual relations, and the nature of the state structure, right? So if you are saying that, okay, political parties are developed in such and such country, then you can also relate it to the development of that society. When the society would be developed, the political parties would also be developed, because these parties are kind of reflection of the society as well, right? And then what is the nature of the relation of masses and these political parties, and what is the structure of these political parties, right? So the uneven development in the rural and urban areas that affected the growth of parties in the colonial period also persisted afterwards, right? There is always an uneven development and there was an uneven development. The urban centers were developed at the expense of the rural areas. Now what happens, that was during the colonial era. But after the colonial era, the same thing, the same trajectory continued. If you see interior Sindh, it is one of the worst or one of the downtrodden areas of the country. And then you come to Hyderabad, you come to Karachi, and then you see the development is there, right? Though these cities are part of the same province, in which you can see, you know, the abject poverty and underdevelopment in Thar Parker. Then you see, for example, Quetta, comparatively far more developed than the rest of the areas in Balochistan, right? See Peshawar, far more developed than the rest of the areas in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, previously NWFP, and then Lahore and Faisalabad. Compare it with Rajanpur and Rahim Yar Khan, and you will come to know about the level of development in those areas, right? And Islamabad is the capital, so that is why I would not be talking about Islamabad. Islamabad is just definitely, there is a glaring difference between Islamabad and the rest of the cities in Pakistan, right? So that thing also persisted. That was the case in the colonial era, and the same thing, urban-rural divide and difference, it was uneven, and it was persisted after the independence as well, right? Though efforts have been made to narrow the gap slowly and gradually, but still we have to cover a lot of ground. Okay, the same trend affected the growth of development of the political parties in Pakistan, right? Like urban and rural, and you know that, and then you can see that there are parties which are very popular in the urban centers, and there are parties which are very popular in the rural areas rather than in the urban centers, right? Okay, parties mostly remained urban based with limited contacts with the rural population. Usually it is the case, like, you know, Pakistan Muslim League, so Lahore centered. Pakistan People's Party, Nawab Shah, and you know, Sindh and Karachi, Larkana, and these areas, but urban centers and not the rural, right? And then one more aspect which affected it, the absence of regular elections in the country, right? So there was no pressure on the parties, and that is why the parties could not reach to even 70% of the rural areas in the country. And whenever a party reaches the rural center, then the rural center, that vote bank is there with that party. And because the rest of the parties, they do not reach over there, and if a party has already reached, so it has tapped that vote bank, and then that vote, the party capitalizes on that rural vote bank as well, because it has approached the rural centers first, right? Okay. Okay, some more problems. Okay, so you can see that the first problem is the lack of democracy within these parties, which I say that internal democracy of the party, right? What are they doing? They just want to grab power. This is their sole objective, right? So political parties, they are after power. You know, there is a scramble for power. So this is what they do, right? So this is a problem in the Pakistani polity, because on the one hand, these political parties, they do not have internal democracy, right? Which means that only a certain set of people or a certain family would be leading this party, and on the other hand, the only objective for them is to grab power, right? Their objective is not to alleviate poverty in the country. Poverty alleviation is not the objective of this party. Imparting education is not the objective of this party. Providing health facilities to the people is not not one of the objectives of these parties, but their primary objective is the acquisition of power. And so in the process, lack of democracy and the acquisition of power, so basically a certain families, certain amount of families or certain people, they just benefit from it, and they are the elites. They are the party, the families who are in the leading position of these political parties. So they benefit from it, and the common people, they do not benefit from the politics in Pakistan. And then they do not have a clear political vision, right? These political parties, they do not have a clear political vision. And how can they have a clear political vision when their objective is grabbing the power, and when they do not have internal democracy? It means that the able leadership from within the party, their passage has been blocked. They cannot reach to the top. So this vision, this political vision, is given by the people, by the party members to these political parties. But if you block these if you block the passage of these parties to reach to the top in the political parties, then this political, then you can say that the political vision is a byproduct, the lack of political vision is a byproduct of these two things, right? Okay, is it clear? Everybody is clear about it? Okay. Corruption has also eaten into the heart of the society, right? So corruption is another issue, and nowadays, you know, in late 90s and 80s, people might not have been aware about corruption. They might not have considered corruption as one of their problems. But now, you know, as a result of a lot of development, many developments in the country, you know, and opposition by many political parties, corruption, the importance of corruption in the deterioration of a country is visible now. You know, so everything within the country, it is being eaten by corruption. You know, so the living standard of the people, it is falling, inflation is on the rise, and you know, every sort of problem that is basically you can link almost all problems with financial corruption. There is no time, otherwise I would have linked even everything with financial corruption, which is happening over here in this country. Every problem of this country is somehow related to the financial corruption prevailing in the country. So that is why political parties are also in the game, and they are involved in massive corruptions as well. There are scandals, there are in the newspaper, there are many things are being told, many things are being written in the newspaper and being told on the print media, and many political leaders, they are facing different kinds of charges of corruption against them. So basically the political party is kind of a vehicle for them to achieve their objective, to rise to the power, and then, you know, involve in corrupt practices and make money, right? Okay. Now, what is this lack of inner democracy, right? If you see, all major political parties are accused of democratic malpractices, right? Their leaders appoint themselves as life chairpersons, right? This is a negative practice. Why a person should be appointed as a life chairperson? The person should allow for others to come and share the responsibility, share their vision, and, you know, just give a new hope to the followers of that particular party. But it is not the case usually. If you see, in Pakistan People's Party, Zulfikar Ali Bhutto was the founding leader of the party. Then we saw Benazir Bhutto. Now we are seeing Bilawal Bhutto. So it is a dynasty, right? Then we see Pakistan Muslim League, Nawaz particularly. So his offsprings, right? particularly Maryam Nawaz, and then Shahbaz Sharif and his offspring Hamza Shahbaz. They are in the line to be the leaders. We see JUIF Fazlur Rahman. Previously it was Jamiatul Ulama Islam. Its leader was Mufti Mahmood, but after Mufti Mahmood, now Fazlur Rahman, who is the son of Mufti Mahmood, is leading the party. There is able leadership available within the party, but that leadership is not provided a chance to rise to the top in the party. Then we saw Awami National Party in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, and there was Khan Abdul Ghaffar Khan. Then we saw Wali Khan, and now we are seeing Asfandiar Wali. So 3 generations they have been ruling this party, right? So this kind of thing, you know, they appoint themselves and then their offsprings, and then they will rule and they will rule, and inner democracy is not there. So that is why the passage for able leadership is blocked, right, in most of the political parties in Pakistan. Party positions are usually distributed. People do not contest for it. These party positions, like the General Secretary and the rest of the positions, they are usually distributed, and the leader of the party distribute these positions. So this leader select them, they elect the leader time and again, right? Because if they elect this particular leader again as a leader of the party, the same leader will appoint them on the same positions after a certain time, right? So this is again a negative thing which is badly affecting the progress, the political progress in the country and the progress of political parties in the country, right? Okay, now with these few exceptions, right, with few exceptions, political parties in the country, in Pakistan, have never held elections within their ranks, right? They never go for internal elections, which is a cardinal principle of internal democracy or democracy in a country. Democracy is not only conducting general elections after 4 or 5 years, it is conducting party elections as well. But these parties do not go for party elections, most of the political parties, right? So this is a dilemma of Pakistan, and maybe that is why, maybe that is one of the prominent factors that we do not see a viable democratic culture in the country. If political parties democratize themselves, then they can translate this democracy in the society. But if they themselves are not democratized, they are not democratic, then how can they translate democracy, then how can they propagate democracy within the society? So this is, I think, one of the major reasons that we do not see actual democracy in Pakistan, right? Okay. Now these important positions which are usually contested in effective democratic nations, they are, these important positions, they are nominations. They are not contested by the political leaders of a particular political party, right? So they are nominated, right? The head of the major political parties are nominated by their so-called working committees or central boards, which again comprise non-elected nominated members. So one nominated member elects another nominated member, right? So what is this? It is like, you know, kind of a give and take. You nominate me, I will elect you. I will elect you, then you will have to nominate me. It is kind of this, you know, a vicious circle, and they are revolving. The whole political process within the political parties, it is just, it just cannot break this vicious circle, right? Now, what happens is that down to the lowest rung of the hierarchical ladder in the party, the leaders of the different tiers and or central executive committee nominate the office bearers, right? So these leaders, they just nominate these office bearers, right? Right down to the lowest rank, right? Okay. What happens that influential people within the party and high command get themselves nominated to important positions in the party, right? Because they are influential and they can influence the whole process. So they can just manipulate the whole system, right? And then social and business upstarts with political ambitions employ similar tactics to get into the party, right? Now this is a dilemma. You can see that, you know, like social upstarts, there are some social upstarts and there are some business upstarts, and what they do, they just use the same tactics. They will donate money for the party and then they will be part of that party. And when that party wins election, then they will be, since they would have donated a lot of money to for the party fund, then they will be elected as well if elected, and they will be elected because they are rich people and they are notables in their own areas, and then they can manipulate, and the party vote bank would merge with their individual vote bank, and then they can, you know, easily be part of the government, MNAs or MPAs, and they will reach to the corridors of power through that party because they would have donated money to the party, and then they will involve in the corrupt practices. When they reach over there, they would grab a ministry, a powerful ministry, and then they will involve in corrupt practices, and they will just make money because they have invested a lot on the party. Now it's their turn to make money, right? So it happens like this, and it is basically a negative trait of the political parties in Pakistan, right? The heads of the country's two larger political parties often cry hoarse over the need to get rid of military dictatorship, yet they continue to practice democracy in their own political parties, right? They continue dictatorial practices in their own party, and they do not practice democracy in their own political parties, right? So this is very unfortunate. Like these are the two main political parties, Pakistan People's Party and Pakistan Muslim League, and the leaders of both these political parties, they have been crying from 1999 till 2008 that there is dictatorship in Pakistan and there are no political activities in the country and this and that, and viable democracy is what the country needs. But they themselves, they do not practice democracy within their own parties, right? So this is very unfortunate that they should be they should be the ones who would be promoting democracy in the country, but they do not do it. So where should the people go? To whom the people should resort to implement democracy, or to have a viable and practicing democracy in the country, if these political parties are not providing them this platform, right? Such contradictions hinders the flourishing of normative democratic culture in the country, and the political parties were hardly prepared to cope with the situation arising out of the assumption of the power of General Pervez Musharraf in 1999. Because they were not prepared, they did not have any kind of democratic practices within these parties. So that is why they were not prepared to cope with the dictatorial changes or the regime change in 1999, which as a result of which General Pervez Musharraf took the reins of power. So they were not democratic internally. Internal democracy in these parties was not there, and that was why that they could not pose a challenge, a mentionable challenge to the dictator at that time, right? So internal democracy can help you even garner support against dictatorship. If these political parties democratize themselves internally, then they will be in a better position to pose challenge to the status quo, to pose challenge to the establishment. If establishment is pressurizing them somehow, then they will be able to pose challenge to them. But they themselves are not democratic, and that is why they cannot pose viable challenge to dictatorial policies of the establishment or dictators themselves, right? Okay, now another problem which these political parties are facing is the lack of building up of leaders, right? So they cannot build leaders. In the West, we see that leaders are built, right? Leaders are born, but they are built as well, right? So leaders are built, but over here in our political culture, leadership is not built. Why? Like, for example, both Nawaz Sharif and Benazir Bhutto, the leaders of two main political parties, never encouraged the growth of alternate leadership in their own parties, right? So they never encouraged it. While they were the leaders of these both political parties, after the martial law after Zia martial law in 1988, these two political parties emerged as the largest parties or large parties in the countries, largest parties in the countries. But then what happened? They did not cultivate leaders in their own political parties, right? Many able brain that has been wasted, and they do not get a chance to be in the leading position of these political parties. So this is what happens, right? The parties in Pakistan do not build politicians from workers to leaders. This is again a very negative aspect of political parties of Pakistan. From low ranking to high ranking public activists, and from weak to powerful decision makers. They do not do it with their own workers, right? So that's why political parties in Pakistan, they are weak, that they do not cultivate. That is one of the reasons that they do not cultivate leadership within these political parties, right? So these political parties face a problem in mobilizing their disenchanted workers who seem to be in no mood to make sacrifices for their leaders. They find it really difficult. That was why they could not mobilize their own workers in 1999 against Pervez Musharraf. Otherwise the worker would have flooded the streets. They would have flooded the streets, and they would have posed challenge to Pervez Musharraf, and Pervez Musharraf would not have been in a position to assume power. But then he did easily. It was a bloodless coup. Why it was a bloodless coup? He had ousted a prime minister, an elected prime minister, through a bloodless coup. So why didn't the people of the country come to rescue their elected leader? Because these workers, they were in no mood to make sacrifices for their leader, right? Because these dictatorial policies within the party, they have been facing this issue, and it is basically weakening the whole political structure in the country. Then corruption is there, and lack of transparency is also there in the political culture of Pakistan, and that is why this corruption and lack of transparency is hampering the growth of political parties in the country. For example, after the October 1999 military coup, many analysts described the two major political parties of Pakistan as corrupt, incompetent, unpopular, you can see, right, and highly damaging to the welfare of the people in Pakistan, right? And they also observed that a plutocracy, which was ripping millions of rupees away from the public exchequer, it was there. This corruption was there in the country, right? And they only knew money. They knew nothing about the public interest. They knew nothing about the social welfare in the country. The only thing which they knew was money, right? And many independent observers are of the opinion that it is happening like this, right? So it is again putting a question mark on the very existence and the efficacy of political parties in Pakistan, right? Okay, do you have any question up till now? Okay. If you have question, if you are not clear about anything, you can just stop me and you can ask me. Otherwise, I'll assume that you are getting it, and I'll be explaining it, right? Okay. Okay, so such charges of corruption against the political parties or against the leadership of political parties, they further strengthen the feeling of alienation among the people. So now the people think that, okay, our leaders are corrupt, right? Why should we come to the streets to rescue our leaders? Because they are corrupt. And leaders haven't been produced within the party. So second tier, third tier leadership is almost missing. They always look to the top tier, to the first tier, right? So that thing is missing, and that is why we have observed in the country that whenever political parties are overthrown, elected governments are overthrown, people rarely come to the streets. They rarely come to the streets because they think that it's none of their business. Why should they sacrifice for it, right? Their leaders are corrupt and this and that. So this culture is prevailing in the country, right? This culture is prevailing in the country, and that is why it is like this, that we have seen these weak political parties in Pakistan. Then political parties funding in Pakistan remains an unanswered question. From where they get these funding? This is a question. No party is able to explain the source of funding. They would say it's donation, but what are the channels of this donation? So this is an open question, and mostly parties are involved in kind of corrupt practices to generate funds as well. And the next issue is that political parties and their manifestos. This is also a very important issue, right? What are there in the manifestos of the political party? Ritualistically, every political party has its manifesto issued at election time, but these manifestos hide a number of contradictions, right? Because there are contradictions and they normally hide these contradictions, right? First, while they consciously try to be all things to all people, this is what these are kind of slogans, right? All things to all people, like everybody gets everything. They hide a lot of contradictions, all things for all, and these manifestos tend to address a long list of problems. They evade prioritizing them as well as the pledge to their solution, right? They pledge that they will be offering solutions for it, but then they do not do it, right? They rarely specify how resources, not only financial and economic, but political, administrative, cultural and social, are to be generated and allocated to mutually competing promises. They make a lot of promises, then they will have to allocate different resources to fulfill those promises. But then they do not give a justification that how would they generate these resources to meet their own promises, right? So, and normally political parties' manifestos are there, that these manifestos explain these kind of things. But in Pakistan, these manifestos, they rarely talk about these things. They do not give a holistic view to their, a comprehensive and holistic view of party, its objectives, how it is going to achieve its objectives, if resources are needed, from where the party is going to get these resources to achieve the objectives and fulfill these promises. So these things, these components are missing. So even their manifestos, they are not comprehensive, right? And then parties are rarely serious enough to sift through and solve even serious contradictions among pledges made in their manifestos. Like, for example, a party would say that, okay, I will pay debts of Pakistan in 6 months, right? So it might be a slogan during their electioneering, but then the manifesto is completely silent about how they are going to achieve it. A party has had promised that it would resolve the power crisis, energy crisis in Pakistan within 6 months, but then it did not tell its the readers of the manifestos or its followers or the people in the country that how it is going to do it, right? These were empty slogans. So these kind of empty slogans, they are always there in Pakistani politics, and they do not, the parties do not bother to address these kind of issues, right? So this is a contradiction. Like in current political situation in Pakistan, even you can relate this to the current crisis, the current issues in Pakistan, that elections are about to be held in somewhere in the mid of 2018, and the manifestos of almost all political parties, they are not out in the public up till date, right? So these manifestos should be available with the people, and they should be published beforehand, at least 1 or 2 years ahead of election, so that the people can generate debate about it, and people can discuss different aspects of these manifestos, and they know about different parties' objectives and how they are going to achieve these objectives. But these things are missing in the Pakistani politics. Unfortunately, they are not missing, they are not only missing today, but they were missing yesterday as well, right? So this kind of culture in which manifesto is considered as irrelevant thing, in this kind of culture, political parties cannot flourish. They cannot make themselves strengthened, and the political culture in the country, it cannot be, it cannot proceed with this kind of approach. And because the approach without a manifesto of political parties, it is a makeshift approach. It is just, you know, a verbal kind of communication, and nothing verbal kind of communication. It is not counted anywhere. There should be something concrete with the people, in the black and white, about party A, party B, party C, and party D. So this concrete thing should be there with the public, but unfortunately this concrete aspect is missing in Pakistan, and that is why that we see that a weak political culture is there in the country. Thank you very much. Thank you.